Hi again, Dr. Sheri here with part 4 of our series on evidence-based practices. Today we're going to talk about social narratives, which is a great strategy that can be used in all situations with children of all ages. I'm going to talk about 3 specific types of social narratives today. The first one I'm going to talk about is what's called a power card. The second one is a simple social narrative story. And the third one is what's called a social autopsy. So let's get started. Let's first talk about a power card. And as in any of these social narratives, what you first want to do is you want to identify the specific social situation. So what is the social situation that is causing the problem or in which the problem is occurring? And then you want to identify what is the specific behavior that you expect to see. So you define what's the social situation, and then what is the behavior that you want to see, and then you're going to identify which strategy is going to work best for you. So with a power card, what you're going to do is you're going to really capitalize on that circumscribed interest that many of our children on the autism spectrum have. And then you're going to develop a scenario that incorporates that hero or that circumscribed interest. So for instance, let's say that my son has a circumscribed interest in firemen, and he's extremely interested with firemen, and he's very interested in the fireman who lives just down the street. What I might do is I might develop a power card that talks about the fireman down the street and how he deals with a certain situation. So for instance, let's say that my son, who loves firemen, doesn't like group work at school. So what I might do is I might talk about how Fireman John from down the street doesn't always like to work in a group, but he knows that it's really important that when he needs to put out a fire with the other firemen, he cooperates with the other firemen so that they can get that fire put out. Then you develop a power card that might have a picture of a fireman on it, or an actual picture of your neighbor the fireman, or our neighbor the fireman, saying that Fireman John knows that in order to put out fires with the other firemen, he needs to work in a group. So when it's time to work with the other firemen, he does his very best to cooperate and to be a strong team member so that he can stay safe and keep the other firemen safe. Then what you would do is you would use that power card when your child is going to be in that situation where you think there could be a problem. Teachers can use this, other professionals can use the power card, or parents can use the power card prior to a situation that they think might be troublesome. So that's a power card as a type of social narrative. The second type that we're going to talk about is a social narrative that's in the form of a story. So, true story, several years ago, when we needed to travel cross country to go to a family wedding, I had my mom who has dementia and my son who has some executive function deficits because of a car accident together. And so I was a little bit concerned about what might happen on the flight and while we were at the family wedding with all of those unexpected changes happening. So I bought a little pad of paper, wrote a little story that just said, today we're going on the airplane. I might be asked to help mom or grandma when they need things lifted. If mom or grandma or someone working for the airplane tells me to do something, I will do my very best to do what they say. Going on an airplane is a great adventure, and it's even more fun when I listen to what mom and grandma have to say. I went ahead and handed that to my son before we got while we were standing in the line to check in our bags, and I could just see the stress level dissipate, and he put it in his pocket inside his jacket and said, "Thanks, Mom, that's really helpful." That entire week that we were away at the wedding, Every day he asked for a new story so that he would know what to expect. And it just worked perfectly. The last one we're going to talk about is social autopsy. And we all know when an autopsy occurs. An autopsy occurs at the very end. So for a social autopsy, we actually do the social autopsy after a behavior has occurred. So typically we would really like to get ahead of those behaviors and not have them occur at all, but sometimes after the situation we need to really evaluate what's happened. And again, this is a metacognitive strategy. It's one that helps the young person to think about their thinking. And basically we're going to ask these kinds of questions. What specifically happened? What was the social error? Who did the error hurt? Or who was hurt by that social error? What could you do differently in the future? And these kinds of questions can help the child to think about what happened, their role in that, and then most importantly, what they can do differently next time. For more information on these and other evidence-based practices that can be used to improve executive function skills, get the book Flip the Switch, which is available at aapc.com or at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Thank you, and I look forward to hanging out with you again tomorrow.